Grayson Report, how's everyone doing? Happy Monday. What's up, Tammy, Wendy, Delea Lux, Lisa Boo, Chris Barber? I want to give a shout out to Delea Lux for the Twinkie money. Thank you for sending me a PayPal hearts for Delea Lux, guys. I appreciate it. She had sent me a PayPal for Twinkie money. So thank you, Delea Lux. Joanne, how's it going? Did anyone do anything interesting or see anything interesting over the weekend while we wait for people to trickle in? What's up, Matthew? And then Lisa Boo also said Project Metal Music says A up back to you as well, Project Metal Music. Joanne goes, boring. It was a rainy weekend. We were overcasted here in SoCal. But it was a nice day today. Gunner Girl, what's up? Wendy, how's it going? Gonna wait a few minutes for people to trickle in. I discovered what is it on Netflix? It's a true crime doc. Forgot the name of it. Dancing with the Devil, I think it was. I don't know if any of you guys heard of it. Let me see if that was it. I'm gonna continue watching it. Didn't get to finish the first episode, but Dancing for the Devil on Netflix. It's pretty interesting. It's kind of about a cult. Not sure if any of you guys have heard of it and started watching it. Matthew goes, have you ever danced with the devil in the pale moonlight? Wendy goes, I just found a tick on my neck. Those are I've seen videos of ticks, but I have never experienced one. Thank goodness. I'm gonna knock on wood, but I've never came across one yet. And I'm outdoors a lot. I do hiking and lately I've been city hiking, but still I'm outdoors. Yeah, Joanne, that's what I've heard and seen. So I'm glad Joanne says ticks are scary. I'm just glad I haven't encountered one. Wendy goes, it's on my playlist talking about Dance with the Devil, or what the heck is it called? Again. Dancing for the Devil on Netflix. I just started watching that. Finished Bridgerton season. I forgot. I don't even know what season it is. I'm waiting for this season of Bridgerton. While I wait for people to come in, we'll get into the main topic in a minute. Is kind of not as I don't know. It doesn't have that oomph like the previous seasons. But I'm still excited for the second half. I believe the second half comes out June 13th, so I'm looking forward to that. Wendy goes, I've only had 2 engorged ticks, but caught them quick. Chris goes, my grandma lived on a farm. Julissa, what's up? How's it going? Saw Ghost Adventures last episode. They investigated a hospital here in LA. It's closed. I guess it's a closed down hospital, but it's fairly secured. It's not completely abandoned. I'm still missing the previous episode of Ghost Adventures because I skipped to the LA one, so I'm still behind. Chris Burr goes, lots of ticks on the farm. I'm lucky. I've avoided them. I'm knocking on wood as we speak, because watch. And I've never found one on my pets, or when I had dogs, I never found one on them, luckily as well, because they look nasty. Haven't seen anything spooky. There's nothing new that's popped up. Delay, thank you for your PayPal. I'm not sure if you heard it earlier. I appreciate that for Twinkie money. Whitney goes, I think I got the tick from my dog. Ooh. Chris has found ticks on her dogs. Whoa. I'm lucky. I haven't had that issue here, luckily, in SoCal. I do have a channel on my TV um that shows Elvira's old show, so it's kind of cool to see that pop up. I kind of watch it a little bit. I used to watch it when I was a kid, so it's kind of brought me back to when I was a kid. It popped up on my TV. I was like, "Oh, this is cool. I haven't seen this in ages." It's a huge fan of Elvira growing up. I have her Funko Pop somewhere behind me. Oh, you can't see her. You can see the top of her head. All right, guys, as always, Skeleduck is somewhere in this background. Just remind me at the end of the stream, and I will remind you, or just remind me at the end of the stream, because I will forget, and I reveal his location, because I will forget in my old age, I'm forgetting things. So have any of you guys heard of the devil's footprints? I have never heard about it myself. I believe there's something else. There's another story about the devil footprints print involving a church as well. But that wasn't the story I was looking for. I was looking for this particular one about the footprints in the snow. Which I had never heard of either of them, so this is going to be a kind of cool story. And Chris has already sees Skeleduck. Just remind me at the end of the stream, and I will reveal his location because I am not complete. What's up, Bernadette? How's it going? I will forget. Wendy goes, nope, on the devil's foot. I never heard of it either. I'll wait for a few more minutes for people to come in. We'll get into the devil's footprint. Few more minutes. But then again, I don't want you looking at my face going like with funny faces that I make. Bernadette, sorry to hear that you had a long day. Oh, those are the worst. Those are. Chris has never heard of it. Matthew sees the duck already. He's kind of in an easy location today. Just in a position I've never really put him in before. So keep an eye out. Just remind me. And for anyone that doesn't know what if it is, he is pictured in the upper right hand corner. This is what Skeleduck looks like. He's in this background somewhere. So if you guys just remind me at the end of the stream, because I've forgotten a few times. I've ended the stream and I'm like, oh. But he's out in the open, ready to say hello. So if you guys not to be mistaken for his long distant cousin Skelegoose, which is right above my head. Skelegoose is usually in the same position. I don't normally move him. Probably should move him, but I don't. All right, guys, we are going to get into the devil's footprint. So this is the devil's footprint. Devon's diabolical hoofmarks in the snow. This is off a blog, The Serpent's Pen, which is a David Castleton blog. Didn't realize it was a blog, but this article seemed to be in depth, and I wanted an in-depth article about it. It's kind of fairly an old article. It came out January 7th, 2021. But still, all in all, it'll still give us the information we are looking for. On the 9th of the 8th and 9th of February, 1855, a long and meandering trail of mysterious marks was left in the snow across the English country or county of Devon. Bernadette was like, well, look at that. I found him. He's in the open today, ladies and gents. The marks resembled hoof prints, somewhat similar to a donkey's. The intriguing and disturbing thing, however, was that the hoof marks didn't look like they've been made by a four-footed animal. The marks mostly appeared in single file, as if some two-legged upright creature had hopped or jumped. Occasionally, the tracks were double, suggesting the strange biped had merely been walking. It didn't take the local country people long to determine which entity was responsible for the hoof prints. They'd only heard of one creature that had hooves but walked upright like a man. The marks in the snow were soon named the devil's footprints, and it would turn out the fiend hadn't finished with Devon. He left more marks, though not in such large numbers, over the following days. What's up, Jennifer Marie? How's it going? It's easy to see why the phenomenon so startled the people of Devon. In some villages, almost every homestead had been visited, and the hoof marks went right up the side of houses and over roofs. They meandered through churchyards and gardens and across fields, sometimes disappearing before starting again a few meters further on, as if the diabolical being had leaped or even flown. Sometimes they'd stop on one side of a haystack and continue on the other without any hay being disturbed. Elsewhere, the creature had squeezed through tiny holes in hedges or jumped tall fences or impossibly high walls. Two witnesses claimed the footsteps had stopped at the entrance to a pipe just 6 inches in diameter, then reappeared at the other end. A feat many felt had to be supernatural, as no animal large enough to produce such prints could have wriggled through the tube. The prints apparently halted before the estuary, a 2-mile wide span of water, then casually started again on the opposite bank. And I do apologize if I'm pronouncing some of these, the city name and this span of water improperly ahead of time. Lisa Boo goes so mysterious. There were also the sheer length of the beast's damnable journey. Though accounts varied, it was estimated that the being must have walked between 40 and 100 miles on the night of the 8th through 9th, so that was 2 nights in February. An accomplishment no earthly creature can manage. The footprints seemed mainly to have been concentrated in South and East Devon, traveling from Exmouth to Topsham, then across the Exe to Dawlish and Taymouth. Some stated that the prints had appeared as far south as Turkey, in Totnes, as far north as the outskirts of Exeter, and as far east as Weymouth in Dorset. The devil's hoofmarks did, however, show some variation. Within some of the impress of a horseshoe could be seen. Other hoofprints boasted claw marks, lending credence to the notion of their infernal origins. Chris Barber goes, I said it correctly. Okay. Because I know sometimes I butcher the names, and I do apologize because I do try to pronounce them as well as I can. I've never heard of these cities, so I do apologize in advance. News of the devil's footprints soon. This is a map of Devon, which is between Cornwall and Somerset and Dorset. The devil's footprints appeared mainly in the south and east around the estuary. Where is the estuary on this map? I do not see it. Just out of curiosity. It says Exeter, but it does not say. I don't see it on this map. But this is a map of Devon. So news of the devil's footprint soon spread through Devon and beyond. Articles appeared in the Times and in the local press. The Illustrated London News published a series of letters speculating about what could have caused the demonic imprints. These reports betray the terror, mingled with curiosity, that many locals felt. Residents, sometimes in armed groups, followed the footprints. Some traced the marks for miles, though without discovering much that could explain them. It's, however, claimed that one local hunt tracked a mysterious beast to a wood near Dowlish. The huntsman sent in the hounds to corner the creatures, but the dogs soon came back, baying and terrified. Doof Doof, thank you for the super chat. Coffee and cake for you and Lewis. Love you. Thank you, Doof Doof Paranormal. Hearts for Doof Doof. Thank you, Doof Doof. I appreciate that. The Western Luminary and Family newspaper stated the footprints had created an uproar of commotion, while according to the Times, a considerable sensation had been evoked in the towns of Topsham, Limpstone, Exmouth, Teignmouth, and Dowlish in the south of Devon. The superstitious goes so far as to believe that they are the marks of Satan himself. Great excitement has been produced among all classes. Many superstitious people in the above towns are actually afraid to go outside their doors after night. A letter in the Woolmer, Exeter, and Plymouth Gazette said the poor are full of superstition and consider it little short of a visit from old Satan or some of his imps. The Western Times related that Exmouth had been thrown into a state of alarm in consequence of a report that the town and neighborhood had been visited in the night by no less a person than his satanic majesty, and that the marks of his feet were distinctly to be seen imprinted on the snow. So this picture right here is of various sketches of the devil footprints made by eyewitnesses from the paper of the Devon Vicar, the Reverend H.T. Ella Combe. So they kind of just look like, regular hoof marks, like horseshoes in a way, except for the one in the middle. That looks a little different. Heather, whatever, what is up? Daniel, how's it going? So not everyone agreed the devil's footprint had supernatural causes. Journalists, naturalists, clergymen, and the more educated who looked down on their superstitious neighbors were soon coming up with theories to explain the sinister occurrence. Later, writers have also tried to identify who or what made the marks. Possible culprits have ranged from untethered balloons to swans clad in paddled shoes to badgers, otters, and escaped kangaroos and monkeys. Some have blamed, but the problem is the weather. In February, it's cold. So they're saying it's escaped kangaroos and monkeys, but but kangaroos and monkeys don't have hooves. at feet as feet. So that's kind of I wouldn't have ever thought it was a kangaroo or monkey, especially in that part of town. Some have blame unless they escaped it, unless they had a zoo in that area at that time, which I'm not sure if they did, but that's kind of something I would have never thought. And then they were saying swans clad with padded shoes. I mean, it could have been someone had a swan and was trying to trick people. Badgers, otters, they don't have that type of feet. Others have suggested UFOs and sea monsters. Some have seen a human influence at play, from attempts by austere Protestants to frighten religious opponents to Romani gypsies on stilts, creating the marks to scare off rival bands of travelers. The devil's footprints were certainly a strange case. Let's look at the explanations that have been put forward and try to make some sense of this diabolical conundrum. Chris Barber goes, what kind of shoes? Especially because it was in 1855. So someone, if it was a trick, someone had to be very clever. Donkeys, badgers, cats. Could an ordinary animal have made the devil's footprints? Chris goes, high heel boots. They're saying though, like according to this picture though, it's more of a like a horseshoe type of hoof mark. I mean, yeah, I guess maybe high heel, depending on how big the print was. They didn't say how big because I know high heels could leave some sort of mark, but I don't think it would be in this U shape though. Too bad I can't read what it says the writing is, but except for the one in the middle. The one in the middle looks more like a paw print or a bear print or something like that. Wendy goes, boots with fur? Maybe. Maybe. Daniel goes, manicore? Daniel, what's a manicore? Chris goes, I just think it's funny that swans wear shoes. That's why I'm like wondering, like, where did they get that? Because it's like it's February, it's the mist of summer or winter. It's like winter, not summer. What am I thinking? Well, swans remind me of summer or spring. That's why it makes no sense that a swan would be out there walking around, in the winter time. Daniel, a manicore is half man or like a centron or what is it? Centron or something like that? Half man, half something else? Like the half man, half horse? I think it's a centron. Hold on. The centaur. Something like that. Centaur. I always say centauron, but centaur. Centaur. Thank you, Lisa Boo. Centaur. Chris Barber goes, bull. It couldn't have been a bull because it was a bipedal mark that was left. So it was someone walking on 2 feet. So accounts from the time described the devil's footprint as between 3.5 and 4 inches long and around 3 inches wide. The marks were mainly in single file rather than alternating to the left and right as the prints of humans and many animals would. The distance separating the marks as well between 8 and 16 inches, suggesting either short hops or an almost menacing gait. If these marks could have been made by some land animal rather than his satanic majesty, we must inquire if any creature common in the British Isles might have produced them. Most of the marks were cloven and traces of horseshoes were found within some, so we should start by asking whether the imprints may have simply been left by donkeys or ponies. People at the time noted that the marks indeed looked like the hoofprints of such animals. The Western Luminary and Family newspaper described the marks as exactly in shape like a donkey's hoof, while the Times stated the impression of the foot closely resembled that of a donkey's shoe. The possibility that such a creature might have left the prints, though, was quickly dismissed due to the layout of the marks. As the Western Time luminary put it, they were evidently done by some two-footed animal. So pictured here is a donkey. But donkey prints can be deceptive. According to the researcher Theo Brown, donkeys are the only animals that plant their feet in an almost perfect single line, a fact that has led her to conclude that at least some of the devil's footprints were made by such creatures. Though this might seem an easy answer to our mystery, the idea the prints were left by donkeys conjures up some tricky questions. Human steps weren't seen alongside the devil hoof marks, and it's unlikely that people would have led or ridden donkeys in the thick of a winter night through gardens and churchyards and across expanses of private land. Most of these theoretical donkeys must have therefore strayed, and several such beasts would have needed to escape simultaneously to produce the qualities of marks seen. Also, there's no way that donkeys could have trotted up the walls of houses or slithered through narrow pipes, and the creatures are unlikely to have walked over roofs. Oh no, I know a centaur had four legs, but Daniel had mentioned it, and part man, part something. So I said centaur. I know I am pronouncing it wrong. We might also question why country people wouldn't have recognized donkeys' trails. To this objection, it might be said that significant falls of snow are uncommon in South Devon, an area with one of the most temperate climates in Britain. Might locals, agitated by the less explicable barks, such as those going up houses, have then seen the prints of stray donkeys in the unfamiliar snow and decided they were more sinister than they actually were? In opposition to the idea, we must consider a letter sent to the Illustrated London News by a correspondent calling himself South Devon, who gave the impression of being a veteran countryman who'd also spent time in Canada and who had much experience of tracking wild animals and birds upon the snow. South Devon claimed that on the morning of 9th of February, or the February 9th, the prints of well-known creatures were recognizable as the snow bore the fresh marks of cats, dogs, rabbits, birds, and men clearly defined, and that unlike the devil's footprints. They excited little they excited little comment. South Devon did admit that the devil's footprints were the perfect impression of a donkey's hoof, but stressed that foot had followed foot in a single line, and that no other animal walks in a line of single footsteps, not even men or man. This suggested this suggests South Devon and perhaps others in the area were actually unaware of how donkeys' hoof marks can appear in snow. So this is kind of a sketch of the devil's footprints and how it was found. Which is it's a hoof mark in a single line. Chris goes, a minotaur is half man, half bull. So those stray donkeys might well have made some of the hoof marks. They can't account for them all. Another creature accused of making the diabolical imprints was the humble badger. I'm like, why would they think a badger? That's like the I would not think a badger. Would you guys have thought a badger if you saw these if you saw this? Would you have thought it was a badger? I would have not thought it was a badger. That would not be my first notion of what caused these footprints. Also, in a letter to the Illustrated London News, the well known naturalist Richard Owen put the blame on this seemingly innocent animal. Owen emphasized that badgers are not only nocturnal but can travel significant distances while looking for food, especially in winter. Badgers also have long claws, and claw marks were spotted in some of the devil's hoofprints. The paw prints of badgers are, however, staggered, and the creature has quite a large tread, meaning it would almost certainly leave a double line of marks. It's also somewhat comical to imagine stout and sturdy badgers scaling walls, strolling across rooftops, and springing over haystacks and high fences. So these are examples of trail marks left by a white-tailed deer, a cottontail hare, a fox, a badger, and an otter, which looks nothing like the devil's footprints. Chris, exactly. Badgers don't have hooves, so I don't even know. Like you could see this one right here, D is the badger footprint, or what a badger would left, and it does not would leave if it was walking anywhere, and it does not look anything like the hooves. Heather, whatever goes. I take images of prints in snow and gauge bear prints in dirty dirt by measuring next to my running shoe. No badger, they would have tiny feet. Little baby bunny from deep space. Wendy goes, we haven't seen the black bear in a year. Lots of deer prints. Chris Barber goes, their footprints are more like raccoons. They are. They kind of are, actually. Because I get a few raccoons in my yard because I leave cat food for the neighborhood cats, and I see them on my camera coming up and eating them. And one time I actually fed one. Like, I left some food out in front and I watched them eat. And it's so cool to see them eat because they actually use their hands. So now they're saying another everyday animal blamed for the devil's footprints was a cat. That is definitely not a cat print. Uh, I would have never thought a cat as well. On the morning of 9th of February, the tenant of Aller Farm in Dowlish discovered that the night's strange weather had distorted some paw prints his cat had left in the snow. Snow had come down heavily around midnight, but towards dawn, there had been a slight thaw and some rain. The temperature had then dropped again, and there had been a frost. Such melting and refreezing had warped the steps of the unassuming Moggy into the shape of a small hoof, with still the impression of the cat's claws enclosed. The tenant reported this to the Reverend Edward Ferdston, the vicar of Dawlish, who presumably noted it down. Doof goes, I love raccoons. Wish we had them in Australia. I love them. I see them all the time in my yard, and I think they're hilarious. I see the whole family. I see the mama, the papa, and the babies. They're so cute. Julissa goes, I'm fighting with the deer right now. They're eating all my roses. Oh no! That sucks. Heather, whatever goes, raccoons are cool. And I know cats are active at night, so it does make sense, but still, the associations of cats with the devil footprints is an interesting one. Cats can spring considerable distances, perhaps accounting for some of the smaller breaks in the lines of imprints. They're also excellent climbers, which they are, and they have very good very good eyesight during at night. And they can move fast. They're stealthy. Cats can spring considerable distances, perhaps accounting for some of the smaller breaks in the lines of imprints. They're also excellent climbers, which could maybe explain some of the marks on the side of the houses, although such prints would be unlikely to be in single file. Also, except where snowdrifts have accumulated, the prints on house sides are likely to have been muddy ones rather than stamped in snow, and so would have been recognizably feline. Cats, though, have certainly been known to saunter across roofs. They do. My outside cats, I'll find them on top of my roof. And while cats don't create trails as linear as donkeys, the prints of cats and other animals like foxes can give the impression of being in single file. Devon's farms and villages in the mid 1800s no doubt contained lots of cats, so the distorted tracks of domestic moggies might account for some of the devil's footprints. It's unlikely, however, that many cats would have taken it upon themselves to embark on journeys miles long through the snow. And then also too in the snow, I know some cats don't like snow, and um I've seen them walk. They'll tend to walk where someone else has walked so they can avoid the cold snow. Bunnies or Heather whatever goes, bunnies eat my flowers. Matthew goes, careful because raccoons can cost you an arm and a leg. Oh, I don't get there. I don't get near them. I just especially with the one that I saw, I saw him on my fence. So I just put some food out and I watched him eat it from afar. Like I don't get near him. Daniel goes, darn deer ate my blueberry tree. Ah. Heather, whatever goes, cats don't walk with claws out. Very true. They don't. Chris Barber goes, so now cats have hooves. I'm confused. Well, they're saying that a cat went through the snow, then there happened to be some more snow and some rain that distorted the track of the cat, and that's why they thought that maybe the cats were a culprit of the devil's footprints, and the fact that they did find footprints on houses and on roofs. They know that cats can jump on roofs, on roofs, on rooftops. They can climb up trees. They can climb up. So that's why they were thinking that possibly maybe a cat had done it. But then they're saying that a cat won't take it upon itself to embark on journeys miles long, which is true. They won't. They'll be like, huh. I feel like uh, cats are funny. They are. I love it when you call a cat and they just give you this look. And you're like, come here, come here. And they're like, and then all right, you're like, okay, I'll go to you and pet you. Daniel goes, we got soft paws for our cats at one time, little pads that glue on their nails. Daniel goes, cats are independent. They will only let you pet them when they want to be. Yes. You don't own the cat owns you. Like it's not your house anymore, it's their house. And they just let you stay in the house. More possible culprits for the devil's footprints: hopping mice, otters, squirrels, toads, monkeys, and kangaroos. Nikki Bella, how's it going? Dad, Heather, whatever goes, ignore a cat if you want them to come to you. And Daniel goes, yes, they owe us. Yet more animals have been identified as possible creators of the devil's footprints. On 8th, I like how he writes the date backwards. On March 8th, 1855, the Exeter Flying Post suggested the key to the mystery might be found in the form of a lowly toad. The paper reported that a Torquay man had followed a curious trail through his garden and found a large toad sitting by a tree stump at its end. It's, however, unclear if it was the toad that made the tracks or if it just happened to have positioned itself where they stopped. It's also uncertain whether the devil's footprint did indeed extend as far south as Turkey or Torquay or Torquay, despite what some claim. And thank you for gifting 5 memberships. Welcome, Xander, Kyle, S. Burry, and Eastern Arkansas Transparency, and Court Press 87. Welcome to the Wolfpack. Hearts for Ann and all the new Wolfpack members. Thank you, Ann. I appreciate that. And welcome to all the new Wolfpack members. And if you're new to membership, your membership is good for 1 month as a little reminder. And I believe YouTube also emails you when your membership runs out to remind you. But thank you, Ann. I appreciate that. Give me a second. Toads have webbed feet, so it's unlikely their trails would match the descriptions of the devil footprints unless weather conditions had substantially distorted them. The creatures can, though, presumably hop through pipes, perhaps providing an answer to the conundrum of the 6-inch tube. This is a picture of the comparison of eyewitnesses' sketches of the devil's footprints made in Devon, England, from the papers of the Reverend H.T. Ellicombe. I still don't think it could have been a toad, but they're saying conditions could have distorted them, which makes sense, but I still wouldn't have thought a toad. Chris goes, maybe it's Kermit. Nikki Bella, thank you for being a member of the Wolfpack for 10 months. Hi, Lisa. Always love great ghostly content. Hearts for Nikki Bella, and thank you. I appreciate that. Daniel has webbed toes. Cool. And Heather whatever does as well. Cool. But I still don't think I don't know. I still don't think it's a toad. Other animals skilled at hopping, springing, and jumping have been accused of making the diabolical marks. The Inverness Courier newspaper argued that Devon prints were made by a hare, as similar marks found near Inverness were thought to have been created by a hare or polecat. It remains unclear, however, whether such creatures really did leave the puzzling tracks near the Scottish town. What the heck is a polecat? Hold on, let me look that up. Ah, polecat looks like a ferret. So if anyone wants to know, curious as to what a polecat is, it's similar. Let me stop this for a second. It's similar to a ferret here. Very similar. So this is a polecat. So they're thinking a hare, a bunny rabbit, or a polecat, which looks very much like a ferret. Might have made. They're so cute. Might have made the tracks. They are so cute. I'm sorry, they're cute. Chris goes, if it was Kermit and Miss Piggy made the hoof marks. Brandon, what's up? Rats, mice, and other rodents sometimes engage in hopping and so have been viewed as possible causes of the devil's footprints. In a letter to the Illustrated London News on Thomas Fox wrote that he'd found tracks in his brother's garden similar to those in Devon and suspected rats might have made them. In the 50s, the zoologist Alfred Letcher Lucher stumbled upon similar markings in Epping Forest. Lucher, I'm going to use Lucher, knew that certain animals, including rabbits, hares, squirrels, mice, and rats, sometimes leap with all 4 feet together. If there's sufficient snow, their traces can resemble hoof marks, and Letcher argued this effect is enhanced if the impressions thaw then refreeze. He believed only one animal, though, would have been the right size to make the Devon marks, the wood mouse, and claimed to have zerg tracks left by this creature in Epping Forest that matched descriptions of the devil footprints. But though wood mice might have made some of the Devon imprints, it seems unlikely that wood mice or other rodents would hop for such long distances rather than walking or scurrying, or that single creatures could have made the trails that Devon villagers followed for miles. So this is Thomas's Fox's sketch of the rat prints in his brother's gardens. And they kind of do look like hoof marks. I mean, the first 2 do, but the last one doesn't. But then how did he know they were rat prints, though? Did he actually see the rat make them? Is my question. A more outlandish explanation for the devil's footprints involve a hopping creature of a more exotic type. There were claims 2 kangaroos had left the marks after escaping from a private menagerie in Sidmouth. A Reverend G.M. Musgrave seems to have been the first to put forward this idea, because I when I heard kangaroos, I was like, yeah, right. There's no kangaroos in that area, but then this explains it. Expounding it in a sermon, a letter to the Exeter and Plymouth Gazette outlined how on Sunday last the Reverend Musgrave delivered one of his usual eloquent discourses in Lympstone Church, and in speaking of Satan as a temper who was continually besetting our path, though invisible, aptly alluded to the mysterious visitor who had left behind him visible evidence of his presence, and expressed it as his opinion that the footprints were those of the kangaroo. But it must have been a busy animal indeed to have played up such pranks as the creature has done. Though kangaroos could have bounded over certain obstacles, even these incredible creatures would have struggled to get onto rooftops or leap high walls. Kangaroo prints are in no way similar to hoof marks, and the distance bounced by kangaroos certainly exceeds 16 inches, the maximum span recorded between the devil's footprints. While there were indeed 2 kangaroos in the Sidmouth menagerie, there's no evidence either of them escaped. The Reverend Musgrave later admitted he came up with the kangaroo story to calm his congregation, who'd been terrified by the devil's footprint. In March of 1855, he sent a letter to the Illustrated London News, the state of the public mind of the villagers, dreading to go out after sunset under the conviction that this was the devil's work, rendered it very desirable that a turn should be given to such a degraded and vitiated notion, and I was grateful that a kangaroo served to disperse ideas so derogatory. So above, these are the tracks of a jumping wood mouse for reference, which I don't think looks anything like the devil's footprints, but I agree, Chris. Kangaroos don't have hooves either, but I guess he used it as a ruse to calm down his congregation, and I guess they believed it. An even more incredible suggestion was that the marks were left by a monkey that had escaped from a menagerie or circus. A monkey might have had the agility to climb walls and skip across roofs, but a single monkey couldn't have left so many footprints in one night. And again, there's no evidence of such a creature absconding around the town the devil footprints appeared. A more sensible notion is that otters caused some of the marks. Cold weather might have driven such creatures away from the frozen rivers and streams in search of food, and all the places where the devil's footprints were found were within half a mile of such watercourses. Even in the mid 1800s, otters were common creatures, so many country people may have not recognized their trails. The two witnesses who saw the prints near the pipe suspected an otter might have squeezed through it, and they noticed the creature that had made the marks had slunk under low branches like an otter would. In addition, crossing the estuary would have probably not presented much of an obstacle to these semi-aquatic animals. Though some of the demonic prints have had been made by otters, it's likely these creatures could have left them all, especially those running up walls or rooftops. So the first one is Thomas Fox's rat prints. The second one's a hind foot of an otter. C is a badger's hind foot, and D is one of the devil's hoof marks. I mean, I I guess the rat print kind of looks similar, but then I mean, the only way they would have left it in a single line is if they were hopping. Chris Barber goes, "How about a monkey riding a kangaroo?" Daniel goes, "Maybe it was the monkey king." It may be that the variety of animals were responsible for the devil's footprints. Their marks may have been made somewhat more uniform by the thawing and refreezing action of the weather, though the extent of the similarity of the prints still raises questions. Early 1855 did see exceptional cold. The winter had been so intense that the thermometer was 1 degree lower than has ever been known before by the oldest inhabitant, and stretches of the rivers X and Ting froze over, allowing games and even a feast to be held on the ice. Such conditions could have driven animals to adopt unusual behaviors, traveling further in their search for food and leaving longer trails. These trails, in the excitable mind of some, could have merged into evidence of an epic trek, a journey so outlandish it could only have a supernatural explanation. These are still many questions, however, about the devil's footprint, so we'll leave behind the animal realm for now and look at the activities of birds, balloons, and humans. Might birds have been responsible for the devil's footprints? It might seem a rather obvious assertion that birds were to blame for some of the prints. Most bird species would have no trouble flapping over haystacks, walking across roofs, entering walled gardens, or clearing the estuary. Smaller varieties could have navigated pipes and got through holes in hedges. Hole hedges, oh my god. There's also evidence that the freezing weather caused flocks of seabirds to come inland, which could explain why similar prints were found across a large area. The breaks in the lines of prints may have been caused by birds flying short distances before coming down and walking again. The problem with this argument is that the feet of birds, whether clawed or webbed, leave prints that in no way resemble hoof marks. Some have claimed the birds' feet might have iced up, giving their tracks an unusual shape. One Reverend H.T. Ellicombe did apparently notice flurries in the snow around some of the devil's footprints. Flurries ice-laden birds may have created by beating their wings as they tried to take off, but it's impossible that even laced up, oh my god, iced up birds, I cannot read today, I apologize, would have left impressions like hoof marks. It is possible, though, that already agitated observers viewing from some meters away bird prints on roofs, distorted by thawing and freezing, could have seen them as grime evidence the evil one had visited. Daniel goes, but the frozen ground wouldn't take a print. Well, true, but it would if there was snow. Like if there was a good snowpack above, but then they're saying that the weather caused like a distortion to the print. An entertaining, though improbable suggestion is that a domesticated swan sporting paddled shoes caused the devil footprints. No. An escaped and very much exhausted swan is rumored to have been caught at St. Denis near Paris 5 days after the Devon footprints appeared. A silver collar round the swan's neck showed it had come all the way from Germany from the domain of Prince Hohenlohe. The bird's feet were apparently padded to stop it damaging oriental gardens and lawns. Swans can fly large distances, but it's unlikely that even the most vigorous swan could have crossed the channel, flown all the way to Devon, left hundreds of thousands of footprints in one night, and headed back to the continent. A whole flock of such birds would have needed to abscond to produce the amount of prints seen. Could a stray balloon have left the devil's hoof marks? According to the novelist Geoffrey Household, 1900s to 1988, an experiment. So he lived 88 years. An experimental balloon produced the devil's footprints. The balloon, kept at the naval base at Devonport dockyard, somehow got free and set off a journey across the countryside. The balloon carried 2 shackles on the end of its mooring ropes, and these caused the balloon to continually dip down. It was these shackles making frequent contact with the snow that pitted Devon with its trail of curious marks. Household source was one Major Carter, a local man who'd heard the story from his granddad, an employee at the Devonport base. Carter's grandfather told him that the incident had been hushed up because the balloon had damaged conservatories and shattered greenhouses and windows. The balloon finally ceased its flight at the East Devon town of Honiton. The balloon theory would explain how the devil's footprints had got on roofs and how the entity that made them had bounded over haystacks and walls. It could also account for the gaps in the trails and the crossings of the X during which the shackles would have presumably just hit water. It's likely, however, that the balloon's mooring ropes would have left marks in the snow too, and there are no records of any such imprints. The balloon also would have probably sooner or later become tangled in a tree, bush, hedge, or other obstruction. It seems more likely that the balloon story was invented after the appearance of the devil's footprints as an attempt to explain them. Chris goes, they are grasping at stars now. They're doing it like they're really doing a thorough research here. They really are. I mean, they're trying. I mean, they're giving their educated guesses. But some of them I would have never even thought would have caused those marks. I wouldn't have thought of any of them. But I mean, hey, they're giving their best effort. I give them an A for effort. Might the devil's hoof marks have their own origin in a religious dispute? One explanation for the devil's footprints is that they were left as a hoax, a somewhat sinister prank arising out of the dispute between the Church of England. The church at the time was divided between high church followers of the Oxford movement and more puritanical low church Anglicans. The Oxford movement, put simply, sought to reintroduce medieval elements into Anglicanism, which a stress on ritual vestments, incense, and the beauty of worship, and the belief that religious services should be whole body experiences rather than just appealing to the intellect. To more radical Protestants, this smacked too much of Catholicism, and they wanted more focus on the Bible and sermons, which churches and ceremonies kept plain and austere. Some suspect the Puritans, feeling their opponents were basically in league with the devil, used the snowfall as an opportunity to frighten them. With some sort of implement, perhaps a horseshoe attached to a long pole, they made trails in the churchyard of vicars who supported the Oxford movement, as well as across the landscape more generally. The use of such an implement might explain the marks going up houses, emerging from pipes, and on either side of undisturbed haystacks. It could also account for the similarity of many of the imprints. If an implement had been employed, however, one might accept or expect all the devil's footprints to be identical, which they weren't, though thawing and refreezing may have distorted some. Chris goes, "It's silly." The main objection to such a theory lies in the sheer number of marks. It would have taken a conspiracy of hundreds of Puritans to produce so many. What's more likely is that noticing the commotion the devil's hoof marks had caused, some Puritans took advantage of the uproar to make a religious point. This might explain the prints found in Topsham churchyard on 13th of February, several days after the bulk of the marks had been discovered on the morning of the 9th. Ominously, the tracks of Topsham went up to the very door of the vestibule. Though the vicar at Topsham was high church, not all the churches where prints were found had vicars who adhered to the Oxford movement. At Dawlish, a more Puritan parish, Hoofmarks led from the vicarage to the vestry door, and prints were discovered all over the churchyard and between the graves. Interesting, the trauma of religious dispute does sometimes give rise to alleged experiences of the supernatural. For instance, a vampire legend in Croglan, Cumbria, may have its roots in the religious conflicts that arose around the time of the English Civil War. The Croglan legend even include rumors of a vampire bat flying out of the tomb of an unpopular clergyman. Daniel goes, "I actually have Bigfoot footprints in my sidewalk here." That is so cool, Daniel. Aaron, how's it going? Might. So they keep on going. So at first they thought maybe it was someone trying to do it. So now they're going with the explanation that might the devil footprints have been made by gypsies on stilts. According to the autobiography of Manfred Frederick Wood in the Life of Romany Gypsy, 1973, the devil's footprints were made as part of an elaborate plan hatched by gypsies to frighten off rival traveling groups. Rather than Devon, Wood places the incident in Somerset, though he admits, "I am not sure about the exact area or even the approximate date when this occurred, but it is a true story as I got it from one of my uncles and it filled the newspapers at the time and caused a great sensation." Sorry, guys, cannot read today. Wood goes on that night, as everybody in the area found first thing in the morning, the devil walked right across the country of Somerset. Only it wasn't the devil at all, but some 7 Romany tribes using over 400 set of measured stilts with size 27 boots at their base. The whole operation took over 18 months to plan and prepare. The issue that Romanis had was they felt their territory was being overrun by Dicaius, people of part Romany heritage, and Pickies. Picky is generally a derogatory term for gypsies and travelers, but in Wood's account, it's probably referred to Romany traveling people. The idea was to frighten away these competing groups by exploiting their fear of the mulo. According to Wood, in gypsy lore, a mulo is a vampire type figure that came out of its tomb every night as the dead man's double and would also emerge for half an hour at high noon. Gypsies had once been so terrified of the mulo that they made a point of stopping at a camping site in time to get out of the mulo's way inside their tents or wagons. So the old gypsies years ago never traveled at noon and were out of sight by dusk. Some gypsies, though, saw the mulo not a revenant of a dead man, but rather as the devil in the deceased man's guise. Wood states that having long ago converted to Christianity, most of the pure Romanis in the country no longer bothered about mulos and traveled at any time of the day or night, whereas a good many of the Didi- Didychius or Didychius and Pickies are still very particular about keeping out of the mulo's way. In our family, the belief in mulos were a very useful weapon for clearing an area more or less permanently of pickies. I almost want to say pixies. Daniel goes, the footprint that he has of Bigfoot is 23 inches long. That is crazy. The measured stilts the Romanes used consisted of a pair of steep ladders that could be lengthened or shortened by means of slides and hinges. They were joined at the top by a wheel. The bottom of the step ladder stood in the great big boot, and the man operating the stilts stood on one of the ladders and joggled about on it to make as deep a foot impression as possible. Then he would either swing the second ladder over the top by the wheel if there was enough headroom, or he would raise the ladder by the slide and move it forward in one devil's stride. Either way, he got an exact measure of a stride, as the measure stilts were constructed so they could not over or understride the 3 yards it was meant to do. In order to avoid being spotted when on public highways, the stilt walkers would throw a sheet over the whole work so the devil would be seen walking rather than a man with ladders. Thank you, Heather. Whatever. Do swans have big feet? I do. Not a swan, definitely. Hearts for Heather. Whatever. Thank you for that PayPal, Heather. I appreciate it. Hearts for Heather. Whatever. The Romanes made it look as if the devil had walked right across Somerset in a straight a line as possible, which even meant that his footsteps had to go straight up one wall of any building in his path, then over the roof and down the other wall. The slit walker could not walk up walls. He had to straighten up his stilts to turn them into a long ladder and then make a muddy line of devil's strides. Halfway over the top, he had to hoist the ladder up and swing it right round, and without too much noise, to the other side of the building. This was the snaggiest part of the whole business, as it required exceptional strength and pose. Apparently, the route was planned very carefully and every part of it studied. When the plan was put into operation, it went off without a single hitch. The next day, the devil's footprint could clearly be seen along the whole route. It put the fear of God into all the locals, but that was not the point of the exercise. For the next few years, it kept the area free from pickies and didikais, who swore I probably pronounced it 3 different times because I'm trying to figure out how to pronounce it correctly, so I apologize. Who swore blind it was a mulo that had crossed and they were not going to take any chances. As strangely fascinating as this account might be, the explanation of the devil's footprints has flaws. Wood places the incident in Somerset rather than Devon, though he admits his memory may have be faulty with regards to location. The size 27 boot the gypsies attached to their stilts would have produced prints far larger than the devil's footprints and of a different shape. The stride between the marks left by the Romanes would have also been much larger. In addition, the Romanes made their trail in a straight line, whereas many of the Devon tracks meandered. It's difficult to believe that 400 people traversing the countryside on stilts would have set dogs barking, or that at least some of them would have been apprehended or had accidents. There's also no evidence, as far as I know, of gypsies elsewhere using similar techniques to clear areas of rivals. One detail might, however, hint that stilt walkers could have left some of the marks. In 1889 to 1990, the journal Notes and Quarries discussed the devil's footprints, and one correspondent claimed that the impressions of a point of a stick had been left at lengthy but regular intervals besides the prints. Could such sticks have helped stilt walkers balance? This detail was, however, reported decades after the footprints appeared, and the fact the stick marks were regular wouldn't fit with someone using such an implement whenever they feared they might topple over. I suspect that the Devon incident entered gypsy folklore and that the telling of the tale became ever more elaborate and ever more intertwined with Romany history as the years passed, or perhaps like the Puritans above, the Romans heard of the devil's footprints in hoax-more marks, though on a smaller scale than claimed to serve purpose of their own. D-Nice, what is up? And if you haven't done so, smash that like button when you get a chance. D-Dice goes, more tongue twisters? Yes, there's a lot of them in this article. Could the devil's footprints have been formed by weird weather patterns? Another possible cause for the devil footprints was proposed by the Scotsman J. Allen Rennie. Rennie suspected the footprints had been made by a strange weather phenomenon, one he claimed to have witnessed. In 1924, in northern Canada, Rennie saw a line of mysterious tracks in the snow while crossing a frozen lake. His companion, a French-Canadian dog Skinner, became agitated, blaming the prints on a monster called the Wendigo. So disturbed was the dog Skinner that he deserted Rennie's expedition. Not long afterwards, it was Rennie's turn to be petrified. He saw tracks approaching him in the snow, though no visible creature seemed to be making them. The tracks were being made within 50 yards of me. 20, 10, then smack. I shouted aloud as a large blob of water struck me in the face. I swung around, brushing the moisture from my eyes, and saw the tracks continuing crossing the lake. When he recovered from the shock, Rennie reasoned that the prints had been caused by some freakish current of very warm air coming into contact with a very low temperature, which had set up the condensation. Rennie claimed to have observed similar tracks in Kent in 1939 and in Strathspey, Scotland in December of 1952 and January of 1953. Daniel goes, it probably was a freak on a leash. Feeling like a freak on a leash. If such a phenomenon does exist, it could explain that Devon marks left in difficult to access places like rooftops and presumably walls and high fences wouldn't present obstacles to currents of air. The prints Rennie observed, however, traveled in straight lines rather than meandering, as in Devon, and were bigger than the Devon marks. Those Rennie saw in Canada looked as if snowshoes had made them, while the marks in Strathspey were 19 inches long, 14 wide, and 7 feet apart. Furthermore, meteorologists are dubious about whether air currents could produce such tracks. Those, the naturalist and author of Animal Legends, 1995, Maurice Burton, consulted, declared such claims impossible. So, what's the conclusion? What did cause the devil's footprints? This was a very good article, very in depth. This post shows that an incredible range of causes have been suggested for the devil's footprints, from kangaroos to stray balloons to hopping mice to devil-obsessed Puritans to gypsies teetering on stilts. But even more outlandish ideas have been proposed. In 1972, one George Lyell, writing in Flying Saucer Review, asserted a UFO had made the prints by hovering over Devon and firing laser beams at the snow. Apparently, as part of a measuring exercise, the ex-Navy officer Robert Gould, on the other hand, put forward the idea that an unknown sea creature had emerged from the ocean to leave the marks. Gould's theory mainly relies on the fact that all the prints appeared close to the sea or the estuary. He also noted that pony-like footprints had once been found on the Antarctic Kerguelen Islands at a time when the territory had no land animals. Leaving aside the more offbeat suggestion, might we attempt a hypothesis for the devil's footprints? No one explanation is completely satisfactory, but perhaps a combination of some of the ideas above could go some way toward accounting for the diabolical marks. I suspect most of the footprints were left by a variety of animals. Stray or ridden donkeys are likely to have created some, hence the hoofprints with horseshoes. Other marks could have been caused by creatures such as cats, otters, and badgers, or by the hopping of toads, mice, rats, and other rodents. The thawing and refreezing that occurred of the night of the February 8th and 9th might have then distorted these prints into hoof-like shapes. Additional marks, also distorted and seen from a distance, could have been left by birds, which might account for some of the prints on roofs and on opposite sides of high walls. And I lost my spot because it moved up. Opposite side of high walls and haystacks. The extreme cold weather might have driven animals to stray from the regular territories and travel farther in search of food, meaning prints appeared where they wouldn't normally. Though the correspondent South Devon claimed that the marks of ordinary animals were also visible in the snow and caused no excitement, these could have been left after the melting and refreezing that distorted earlier steps. Observing the commotion these unusual prints provoked, human pranksters could have then created more over the next few nights. The activities of such people might account for these marks leading ominously up to churches or walking straight up house walls. The hysteria, oh my God, the, the hysteria the devil's footprints triggered also likely led to descriptions of them being exaggerated, and over the years, memories of the phenomenon were probably embellished further. Heather, whatever goes, little green men with big feet. Heather, whatever goes, also says, oh my God, their explanations were beyond bizarre. They are. They are. Even eyewitnesses at the time may have been prone to exaggerate. Did I read this one before? No, I didn't. South Devon, for instance, rather than being a matured countryman, was later revealed to the 19-year-old William D. Urban, who'd go on to be the first curator of the Royal Albert Memorial Museum at Exeter. D. Urban was responsible for getting certain notions into press that all the marks were exactly the same size and the same length, which, as we have seen, wasn't quite true. That the prints extended for 100 miles, others estimated it was more like 40, where in a straight line they often meandered and were found as far south as Torquay and Totnes. South Devon also mentioned a 14-foot wall being jumped in prints on the roofs of houses. It's possible that youthful enthusiasm gave extra color to South Devon's account, and some of his contemporaries did dispute his claims. The Reverend G.M. Musgrave, he was the kangaroo theory, wrote to the Illustrated London News about South Devon's assertions. The outline accompanying your intelligent correspondence recital of the circumstances hardly convey a correct idea of the prince in question. As for the excitable account of hounds being terrified by a sinister creature near Dawlish, suggestions have been made that the passage of time has in fact enhanced a different tale. That of the hunt closing in on nobody more threatening than a village idiot. The imbecile who was found of decking himself in layers of chicken and goose feathers and roaming through woods, intimidating animal noises, was almost lynched by the nervous party. With regards to the footprints' audacious crossing of the X, the river is 2 miles wide only where it meets the sea. It can be waded across in places at low tide and may have even been frozen on February 8th and 9th, meaning many animals could have crossed it without occult help. Phenomenon similar to the devil's footprints have been observed elsewhere, suggesting that certainly combined of circumstances may produce marks like those seen in Devon. In 1922, the Daily Mail reported that tracks ascribed to the devil have appeared in Norfolk and Cotswolds, including on rooftops. In January of 1855, prints similar to a deer were discovered on the walls and roofs of several pubs near Wolverhampton. The fact only pubs were targeted might suggest local moralists were responsible. In 1957, cloven prints, 12-inch apart, were found in a Hull back garden. Prints found in Belgium toward the end of World War II are said to have run for miles in a dead straight line. In March of 1855, the Times reported that the hoof marks manifested annually in the snow on a certain hill in Russian Poland. Locals blamed the hoof marks, which, if no snow had fallen, would have appeared in the hill's sandy soil. on malign supernatural influences. Though the Devon case is the most famous and seems the most extensive example of mysterious footprints, the fact it isn't the only one could indicate the natural conditions, with perhaps some added human hoaxing, many occasionally results in such spooky occurrences. So, guys, what do you think? I'm going to stop there because this is a long article. What do you guys think caused the devil's footprints? Do you think it was actually caused by some evil supernatural creature, or do you think someone was playing a hoax in 1855 to just to have fun? I mean, there's a paragraph left, but I just want to see what you guys think it might be. I want to say it was someone playing a hoax. I don't think it was I don't think it was the devil making those hoof marks. I want to say someone was playing a joke. Aaron goes, I think someone was playing a joke. I agree. Daniel goes, both. First was probably real, then people ran with it. I don't think it was UFO. I don't think UFO was shooting their lasers during a exercise and caused the hoofs. I really don't think that. I think that one's really outlandish. Um, it could have been an animal because I do believe that weather can distort a track mark, but I still feel like you could still tell what animal had caused that hoof or caused the trail mark, even if it was distorted. D Nice goes, I think someone was pranking as well. Lisa Boo goes, I would like to believe in mysterious creatures, but most likely a goat or something. I'm hoping it's a mysterious creature. Of course, back then, the fear of the devil was you know big back then. So obviously, their imagination is going to go straight to that. But I feel like someone was just having. I feel like the gypsy theory is very plausible. Someone just playing a prank, being on stilts, um, just to keep other gypsies from being in that area. That was plausible to me. Daniel goes, I mean, how many species did we have on our list back then? Were there a list? Um, there probably wasn't that many. Um, I wouldn't think there was that many, to be honest with you. But to think, or even to think that it was a kangaroo, especially in that area. I get it. A kangaroo was at uh a menage a trois or whatever. They not lingerie, not a menage a trois, lingerie in the area, but still, um, to me that was far fetched. Uh, a swan with booties with little boots on, far fetched. They were thinking birds. I don't think birds. I feel like you could tell it's a bird. Even I feel like even if the snow in general, even if it was distorted, I feel like you could still tell what the animal track was. Daniel goes, that's what I'm saying. Was there a list? There probably wasn't that many found yet, so no list was made. That's why they were throwing like basic animals like an otter, a duck, a swan, a kangaroo, a cat, uh, 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 donkey, whatever they could think of. Then they were even actually thinking it was a weather balloon, which I mean, I kind of because it had things hanging from the weather balloon, like shackles. It made sense, but I feel like the ropes would have caused some type of tracking too when it hit the ground. like when it was losing elevation and it was bouncing from bounce. And then they also said it might get stuck in a tree, which I believe too. But it was hoof marks though, still. Heather, whatever goes, it's always a weather balloon. They want to blame it on a weather balloon. But the fact that this article went in depth to kind of break down like what it might be is kind of awesome. That's always the best way to break down a story, break down to investigate something mysterious. And I'm with Lisa Boo, as much as I want it to be some mysterious evil creature that roamed the earth, that happened to set forth in Devon in 1855 and left without a trace. Unfortunately, that's not what it most likely was. It was a great Wendy, I agree, it was a great article. Chris Barber goes a hopping donkey wearing swan shoes riding in a balloon. Heather whatever goes, it was a skeleton duck print. But then again, they also said that the gypsies had size 27 boots, and that would have left a larger mark than what was found. All right, guys, I am going to open it up for questions and answers. If you guys have any answers, it could be about the devil footprints. Heather, whatever goes, it was Daniel. Daniel does not see the skeleton duck. I'll give you a few more minutes. Like, remind me in like 5 minutes, and I'll reveal his location. Daniel goes, I said I used to jump from spot to spot and not create a snow trail. Daniel goes, it looked just like the picture that you had that you were reading from. Make sure I didn't forget anybody. Heather, whatever goes, they get born in Bigfoot country too. I just want to say it was probably someone that just wanted to have fun and prank, or possibly could have been the gypsies, it could have been someone, but they wanted to prank or scare away someone or just cause havoc. That's what I want to think. I want to say it is. But it's very mysterious. It is mysterious to wake up and see all these trails or tracks and not know where they came from. Heather, whatever goes, teenagers with no cell phones. Well, back then they didn't even have TV or cell phones. So they had to find something to do. And then of course back then it was like God-fearing time, kind of, in a way, religious wise. So um anything, if you did something that was unnatural, they would think it was the devil's work. So I can understand why they would call it the devil's footprints. Julissa goes, definitely a prank. That's what I was thinking the whole time I was reading it. It has to be a prank, like, or someone was, or not necessarily a prank, but there was a reasoning behind it that they wanted to keep people away, or maybe just cause a stir or something. Chris Berg goes, "Oh my, what did teenagers do?" Well, they probably worked the land. They worked. They had to work to help their families out at that time because there was no labor laws back then. So you could be 7 and be working, unfortunately, back then. I mean, that's unfortunately they didn't have laws like that, but it's history. Wendy goes, "It was a very religious time." I agree, Lisa. It was. It was. That time was very if you thought differently, they thought you were the work of the devil, type of thing. So it's like very very, I don't know how you say it, God-fearing um type of time. I agree, Chris. They die. I think a lot of people would die nowadays without a phone. All right, guys, before I forget, Skeleduck, because I know I'm going to forget. Skeleduck, let me see, hold on. He is right there. He is right next to my Diana Funko Pop from V. I decided to put him on that side. I've never put him on that side before, but he was in the wide open this time around. He was ready to say hello, but I had never put him on that side, so I thought it was kind of cool to put him on that side because my camera tends to want to go that way, so I said, why not? Daniel goes, "A city somewhere has a bronze statue made with these people on their cell phone." Julissa goes, "He looks so cute there." Lisa Boo goes, "I saw him again. Yay." All right, guys, you have any last minute questions? We're going to wrap it up a little early tonight. But guys, do you have any questions before I end this stream? Daniel goes, "I did find the duck this time." Thank you, Joanne. Great stream. All right, guys, if you don't have any questions, we are going to end the stream here. Thank you for joining me on this edition of Grayson Report. I will see you on the next one. Next Thursday at 6 p.m. Pacific Standard Time, I'm going to be on Doof Paranormal's channel. I know a lot of you have already subscribed to her. I will be on her channel Thursday talking about near-death experiences at 6 p.m. Pacific Standard Time. I may go on for like a little bit before, maybe in the morning. So keep a lookout on my socials, and I will let you know. For a short time, I may go on for like an hour or something Thursday. So just keep a lookout, and I will see you on the next one. Stay spooky, sweet nightmares, and thank you guys. You guys are awesome, and I will see you on the next one. Good night, guys.